ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, so today's video, I'm going to be talking about Ms. Marvel Mutant Menace number 2, written by Sabir Pirzada and Iman Vellani, with art by Scott Godlewski and color by Eric Arciniega. So when last we left off with Kamala Khan, she is struggling with finding her place now in superheroing and in the public eye, now that she is openly a mutant, even flying the X-Men's colors in public. So yeah, right now she's having a little bit of a tough time of it. Not to mention she recently bumped into mutant punk rock superstar Layla Cheney, and it was unclear how Kamala and Layla Cheney would factor together into the story, or even why Layla needed her help. But we get all the tea here. Basically what's going on here is Mojo is doing what Mojo does best. He's trying to strong arm Layla Cheney into being his new content cash cow with his more recent forays into intergalactic content streaming with Mijmoj, which, if you can't tell, it's Mojo's version of TikTok. But since Layla doesn't like to plant her feet in one space, you'd imagine Mojo and her would have an almost immediate parting of the ways. But there's one problem. All Layla's fans are disappearing. She's starting to play gigs where entire sections are empty, unlike what she is used to. And this is where Kamala comes in. She needs the X-Men, but right now, the X-Men are dealing with some issues of their own if you haven't been keeping up. Orcus running them into hiding is bad news for Layla getting help, but at least Ms. Marvel is here to pick up the slack. The only issue is Ms. Marvel is still having issues with her powers. But Kamala is able to keep the game alive. She's able to help Layla Cheney out, and while she can't necessarily do anything directly, because while Mojo is aware, I'm sure, of who Ms. Marvel is, he is not aware that the person before him is Ms. Marvel. And this is why Ms. Marvel, for the majority of this issue, is in disguise. She's not walking around in costume, because the second Mojo would see that she has that X on her arm, or on her leg, on her boots, on her gloves, on her chest, or anywhere else for that matter, he is automatically gonna know what time it is, and he's gonna act accordingly. So this is where we get to see Kamala Khan in a way that is very meta, considering the fact that, while Kamala Khan most certainly has her haters, all of which, typically are people who have never actually ever read a single stitch, so much as a panel of any comic that she's in, the reality of it is lots of people love Kamala Khan, and that's kind of the case here, whereas Kamala is running interference for Layla Cheney, and the audience is eating it up. They love her. They love her charm. They love her pluck and her guile and all that stuff. They like her personality as a whole. We even get to see Mojo is even pretty damn fond of her too, at least once he realizes that she's a ratings cash cow. He's got her hawking Mojo Froyo, doing NPC streams as well as slime and ASMR streams, making Beatles, Breaking Bad, and Spirit Away, and Edward Scissorhands references. Hell, I'm pretty sure we saw Cadargo from Farscape in at least one scene. I'm almost positive that's who that was. And there's even a moment where she gets dressed up in a ton of flowers the way Florence Pugh was in Midsummer. All of this in an effort to try to keep Mojo busy focusing on her, while Layla gets to the bottom of what happened to her fans. All in all, there's some really good stuff going on here. I like what they're doing with it, and I also appreciate how, once again, I've talked about this before, how Sabir Pirzada and Iman Vellani just work really well together, bouncing off each other's styles of writing. But yeah, it's definitely very meta. I love the way this all flows. Like, it feels like Ms. Marvel in the MCU, but also at the same time Ms. Marvel in the comics, which, to be fair, there's a lot of closeness there in that regard. But basically, that's all the native saying. It all feels really natural. And it has been ever since both Iman Vellani and Sabir Pirzada have been working together on the previous Ms. Marvel series, Ms. Marvel the New Mutant. Scott Godlewski's art does really well here, and I don't really think that I've thought much about Scott Godlewski's art, not because, I don't think anything of it, but just because I feel like Scott Godlewski just does a pretty damn good job a lot of the time. There's not really many moments where I feel like anything was out of place or just didn't pop out as good as I think it should. There's definitely been some issues in some Marvel comics as of late, in the X line of things that kind of, I don't want to necessarily say rub me the wrong way, but made me feel like, ooh man, someone might have phoned it in on this one. I didn't really feel that at any point. Eric Arciniega also does a really solid job on the colors here, though I will always say I feel like some characters that are of the brown persuasion do still seem to have issues with being colored a little too lightly. This is something that, it's a thing in comics. Sometimes you just have to ignore it because it doesn't matter how much it's criticized, people are still going to do it. It's kind of is what it is. And while I haven't really talked about this very much as of late, though it is something I'm planning to do an actual video on about how people of color are often colored in comics. This one here, it's fine. It's fine. It feels about right. And yeah, I think Eric Arciniega did a pretty solid job here, though I do think sometimes the consistency is a little off here and there. But once again, you also have to take in other factors, like how much light a character is under in a specific moment versus how little light they're under in another moment. So there's also that as well. So I take stock of that. But overall, I'm going to say solid. I'll also say one of the things I really liked in here is the commentary. The commentary was pretty solid. The commentary on how studios and production companies like to use AI on the slick, and something that was actually a part of the main ire of writers in Hollywood and why the writer strike kicked off in the previous year. This was it. It was AI writing, and there was a pretty nice little shot at Hollywood executives, because it's one of those deals where they will, and they actually wanted to use AI for scripts and then have executives who don't even have a creative bone in their body decide whether these scripts are actually worth producing in the first place. So that I like that shot across the bow there. That was really nice. There was also even one about how studios use bots for engagement, for their product. That was something pretty interesting there. Like, they do this in an effort to make something look like it is more desirable than what it probably actually is. You see this a lot with music, with music sales, with movies. You see this with TV shows. You even see this in regards to book sales. Not so much with, botting, but just like engagement with a product that isn't natural. Case in point, like with books. Sometimes companies or publishing houses will buy out copies of a book to boost it to be that #1 New York Times bestseller. That's why even books that are written by people who probably couldn't write their way out of a wet paper bag often wind up being New York Times bestsellers. It's not really an important metric. Same thing goes for music. The albums that probably aren't even particularly that great shoot to the top of the Billboard Top 100 charts because companies that are tied to these records often tend to put more money behind it, buy out some of those copies, boost, kind of pad the numbers out a little bit. And the same thing goes with online. Like, we've actually seen in instances where, in the case of TV shows and movies, people will have bot accounts or even sock puppet accounts to try to boost engagement. To make it seem like more people are talking about something online than what they may actually be. It's a bad business, but it's used really effectively here. There's also another bit of commentary here I think a lot of people might miss, and I know this is going to piss some people off, so I'm just going to tell you right now that, yeah, I'm probably about to piss you off. There's some commentary in here. This is a shot aimed more specifically at conservatives, but it's no less funny to read. This is a shot at conservatives because, a lot of times they'll tell you how, oh, it's a culture war. The culture wars aren't important. No one should be worried about culture wars, but yet conservatives are always waging culture wars. They're constantly talking about it and you constantly perpetuating it. So just by the nature of what they do. And they often try and convince you that the things that they hate are things that are not important, shouldn't be important, that you shouldn't care about them. Yet for whatever reason, they're constantly railing off about it as if it's the most important thing to them. And that's kind of brought up here where Lila Cheney makes a comment about Orcus and, people hating mutants and how, for all these people who, hate mutants, it seems like they're always thinking about them, that to the point that they're obsessed. This is very much in line with how conservatives obsess over LGBTQIA+ people, specifically trans people. more than anybody else. It's like they're always thinking about it. It's almost as if maybe they think about them more than they probably should, and why a lot of red states tend to have really high numbers in regards to consuming trans pornography, but that is another story altogether. But yeah, I thought it was a really cool commentary. It actually made a lot of sense, considering that it is always funny how people hate something so much and claim that it doesn't matter to them, and yet they're always talking about it, even unprovoked. All of this commentary is good stuff, and none of it feels out of place, especially for a comic in the X-Men universe, much less an X-Men comic, period. That said, as for spoiler territory stuff, we're trying out something a little bit different. I don't know if I'll stick with it, so I don't know. Let me know what you think. But I'm not married to it, so yeah, if it sucks, well, yeah, hey, we'll move on. But yeah, getting into it, we do get to see Layla and Kamala, take down Mojo in this, and it's done really well. I thought it was pretty cool, though I will say it's all after learning that Mojo has been keeping Layla's fans hostage. And when I talked earlier about the bot engagement stuff, that's actually where all that's coming from. All of Layla's fans are being held hostage and mind controlled and used as a way to boost engagement for Mojo's content. But all in all, Layla and Kamala are able to take him down, though not before he infects Layla with Blightswill. And for those that are not familiar with Blightswill, it's a component that comes from Otherworld that can temporarily turn off a mutant's mutant capabilities. However, if used in larger doses, it can even be considered permanent. But in this case, it's only just enough to turn off her powers temporarily, to the point where it's more of an inconvenience for Layla than it is anything else. Just the fact that she is now stuck after having teleported Kamala back to Earth. She is now stuck having to be in one place with all of her aggressively adoring fans. Something that is, you'd imagine, is probably a nightmare for Layla Cheney. Also, we get to see the return of Red Dagger. For those who are unfamiliar, Red Dagger is a character who is very much an ally of Kamala Khan. They even had a pretty strong friendship and even a potentially budding romance that was cut short when Kamala decided that she didn't really want to get involved with Red Dagger. But the interesting part about Red Dagger is that for being an ally of Kamala, he doesn't actually know who she truly is. Even when it kind of seemed like there was a potential for them to start a romantic relationship with one another, he still never figured out her secret identity, at least not in any of the core comics. I know he appeared in some of the Infinity comics, but as I often like to joke, I don't really read those very often, so I can't really say if anything happened there. But I will definitely say, even if it did, it doesn't matter, because Emma Frost wiped all of the memories of anyone who was a part of Kamala's friend group or her family about her double life. So it would not matter one way or the other if he knew or not. He definitely doesn't know now, even if he did before. Outside of the X-Men, the only people who know Kamala's true identity and what she does, that she is both, Kamala Khan and Miss Marvel, is Bruno now. That's it. And that's only because she told him. But getting back to it, it is going to be interesting considering that Red Dagger is showing up at this point, because we can't forget that, speaking of Bruno, that Kamala and Bruno have been kind of leaning more in that direction of pursuing what could potentially be a romantic pairing between the two, even though neither character is necessarily ready to say it out loud, largely out of fear of death by embarrassment. But yeah, it's something that was kind of hinted at and teased at in Ms. Marvel, the New Mutant, and while we haven't really seen anything of it here, I'm sure it's something that will come up at some point, especially now that Red Dagger is in the mix. She's already had to make a choice between the two before, sort of, and now it seems she may be doing it again. As for what Dr. Nikita Gaia is doing, that is another story. She, considering that she was ousted by Orchis, is working with the apes of Orchis. Like, they're having some kind of a mutual beneficial scientific exchange. We don't really know the full nature of it. We don't even really know what it is that the apes gave her, but whatever it is stated that it is delicate, or that they are delicate. We don't know what it is, but she receives multiple metal containers from Orchis that all seem to house something that she wants to use. And while we don't really know exactly what her plan is just yet, I think it's safe to say that whatever it is going to be bad news for Miss Marvel. As far as what could be in those crates, it could be Krakoan samples. It could even be mutant bodies, maybe even alive mutants. Who knows? You guessed it, obligatory channel outro time. If you're not subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. Clicking that subscribe button and tapping that notification bell ensures that you get more videos just like this one, and you don't miss any of my other content that I drop throughout the week, plus my live streams every Thursday and Saturday. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you click that like button, keep it plus ultra, and sound off in the comments.